Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me today I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I'm all right. A little bit deflated after the Watford game, but we got a quick turnaround, so another opportunity to try and sort of bounce back and get back to winning ways.
Yeah, rapid fire, isn't it? So it's Preston tomorrow morning, Sheffield United this weekend. Early game as well, I saw, so 9:30, which is nice. It's the last game before the clocks all change, which is always the harder time of year. And then into the international break. So, yeah, a couple of rapid fire games and then a chance to catch our breath a little bit. But yeah, frustrating game against Watford, 2-1 defeat. Yeah, I think especially frustrating because having scored so early through McBurnie, having had the chances that we then had to really take a commanding lead, and the Watford fans really getting on the back of their manager at 1-0 down, it just felt like the sort of game where it was a really disappointing position to lose the game from.
Yeah, it really was. I guess it was a game of two halves, and it really was a game that got away from us as well. Because as you say, we took a lead from a really well worked goal. What McBurnie, I think might have been Amir or one possession back. McBurnie takes it, skips past a defender, and then we play quick and play the counter. Verdrame whips a nice ball in for McBurnie to finish off. And I was probably a little bit disappointed in general about the way we sort of approached the game, in that we seemed to be willing to let Watford have the ball, and it seemed like against a team that wasn't in form and didn't really like. It didn't. I didn't really see what the benefit of doing that was. It seemed like Southampton, a really well drilled side, just down from the Premier League. Like, it was going to be that sort of made sense. Let's just lock it up, let him have, and then we'll hit him on the counter. But against Watford, who have been in different form, I think their only wins on the opening was on the opening day. It seemed like we gave them way too much respect in that regard. My only sort of counter thought was that maybe we were expecting them that on the counter where they would be really dangerous, and so we thought, well, if we sort of sit and let them have possession, we frustrate them and hit them on the counter. Maybe that's what we were sort of hoping for, because I can see that with Iran Kunda, there was a Semedo or
Semedo, I think. Was it Semedo or
something, yeah.
Yeah.
So those the couple of handy looking forwards. I think there was one where we did see the potential for their quick counter. The Hughes interrupted the run, or we'll say, was probably lucky to. I honestly didn't think there was that much in that moment. I thought it was good use of the body and stuff, and there was a bit of hands each way. But yeah, it was. I could also, if he'd been sent off there, I kind of would have gone, well, you didn't really leave the ref a lot of options. But they had some moments where I go, maybe that's the reason why we played so sort of conservative, willing to let them have possession. But I just thought that this was a game where we really should have been just attacking them and just like taking control of the game. And it was just a bit frustrating in that regard. I think just the general approach.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the first half, it did feel like that's sort of what we were able to do in terms of chances created, at least. Like McBurnie had that chance. It's one of those frustrating ones where you think, like, on another day, some of those go in and it's a really comfortable win and it's a great win. McBurnie hitting the post, Joseph taking that extra touch when he didn't need to, where I'm sure as Jurkiewicz, he'd be kind of frustrated because it's like you say, it's not necessarily that the tactics didn't work, but at 1-0, it's always an opportunity for them to get back into the game. And then once they score, which was it was a really frustrating goal that they scored as well. I think, we've talked a bit about Panda so far this season, and I can see the case for saying it's as much the defense as it is Panda, but when you're beaten at your near post and you don't even make a movement towards the ball to try and save it, you just sort of rooted to the spot. It looks, if nothing else, it looks really bad. Like whether there's mitigating circumstances, wrong-footed, whatever, it just looks really bad when you don't even make that move. And then I was trying to figure it out with their second goal. Is it McBurnie that actually gets beaten in the air for it, which is probably a tough mark on him because he had such a fantastic game, but I think it was him going up against Semedo, I think, for the header.
I am not 100% sure. I'd have to. I was quickly looking at the highlights because there was something was looking for, but it wasn't the second goal that we conceded.
Right.
So I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, look, I think the manner in which we're conceding goals, like it's the same sort of goals every time. It's someone unmarked, in the box off a set piece or something, or it's corners.
Yeah.
Which is obviously really frustrating that we need to tighten up in that regard. I just think of the amount of times where we are letting a striker or a midfielder or an opposition player, I guess, just have the ball in the 18-yard box and not be, and then they have so much space and time to be able to, pick the bottom corner, have time to go, yeah, I'm going to just smash it there. I just think that's really, really poor.
And we're going to talk Preston soon. I'll be really curious to see with Ajay if he comes almost straight back in, because I'd be really curious to see what our approach is to the defensive setup, because I think with a fully fit defense to choose from, I think to your point, like you need someone like Ajay in there dominating in the air and cutting out those opportunities, because that's really what I just feel like Egan and Hughes are just, whether it's lightweight or whether it's not confident enough going in the air, they just don't seem to have that aerial ability.
Yeah, there's something that's not quite clicking with Hughes and Egan, and I think then maybe Hughes is obviously not at the level of his level that he was last year, where he seemed like we were touting him, going, well, he's going to be a Premier League player in a couple of years. The form he's in the moment is not horrible, but it's nowhere good enough that I'd be thinking he'd be picked up by even a top championship club. I don't think would be coming for him at the moment. But I think there are glimpses there within him, and I'm going to talk about some of those in a sec. I think like the goal line clearance, where Panda, I think, spills it into the Watford striker's, like basically onto his foot, and he's only 2 foot from the goal line, puts it in, and Hughes is there to block that away. I think that sort of is some of his quality. I think there were some nice moments where he stepped forward again, like he was doing at times last year towards the back end, just like stepping forward and taking the ball, driving forward a little bit. So there was a nice play where I think he just kept going and going. He got a shot away on the edge of the 18, but and I think McBurnie was pretty furious that he didn't play that a little bit deeper, and McBurnie would have tapped it in. But I think there were some signs from Hughes that he's trying to grow back, like get that confidence back, but there's something about that partnership that just isn't clicking consistently enough. It kind of seems like individually they're doing some great things in each game. Egan does something awesome and Hughes does something good, but as a line, as a unit, they're not quite working. And I think you go back to was it the Blackburn game maybe, where Hughes dropped way out of the line for them to score?
No, it was
that Swansea?
Swansea, I think. Yeah.
There's just that it isn't quite, and obviously the 0-0 against Coventry isn't necessarily representative of a perfect partnership. It was first game for first competitive game for both sides. There's certainly some rust there, I think, from Coventry. I think after that they went and scored about 12 goals in 2 games or something. They were crazy, but I think having Semi back obviously the point is having Semi back makes, as you say, a really interesting predicament for Sergei. I guess the thing is, with his injury record, if he's fully fit, awesome. If he's just sort of fit to be in the squad, then I'd probably just say sit him on the bench unless there's an emergency and let him get through to the end of the international break. Maybe if things are going okay, you bring him on with give him the 10 minutes or something into the game or whatever. But I think unless he's ready to go, you just have to just give him the extra time, because it's,
and especially with the short break as well. Like you probably, if anything, maybe start him against Sheffield United, give him like you say, 10, 15 off the bench against Preston just to get some minutes in his legs. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens there longer term. Up the other end of the pitch, I suppose, Bellumi came out with that injury. Drame came in. I actually, full disclosure, I was I'd had a few drinks on the Saturday night, so I watched the game, but I wouldn't say that I was engrossed in the tactical setup necessarily of the side. So was Drame playing more on the wing in that case?
Yeah, he kind of just played. I think the idea was that he was kind of slotting in for the most part as sort of like a midfield 4 or something, but then he was pushing up high on the right-hand side occasionally.
So I guess it's interesting in that sense how we look going forward with, obviously Joseph, McBurnie, Drame started. It's interesting, I must say, that Ndala still hasn't really kind of, like that he went for Drame over Ndala, for example. And then
I think I saw that Ndala has a little, has a bit of a foot complaint or something.
Okay.
Thought I read something that he had a little bit of an injury concern, which is why he, I don't even think he made the bench, and that was one of my questions the other night, but.
Yeah, and so then interesting, obviously, Akintola came off the bench. He had a reasonable chance towards the end of the game, nothing amazing, but he just hasn't really... He sort of reminds me of Lincoln last season, another Turkish import who had like a really great debut against Sunderland, and everyone, oh, okay, he's actually pretty good, and then didn't really offer that much else. And Akintola's kind of looked, he's looked all right in times, but then doesn't really offer all that much on a consistent basis. So hopefully he can pick up a little bit from, the fact that we do have a couple of injuries now up forward where, having him coming in would be good.
Yeah, look, I think this was probably about Akintola's worst outing. But I think his first 3 attempts to control the ball were all like just balloon touches and huge, and it was just horrible. And apart from, he I think beat a couple of players to sort of get a bit of a shot away. Didn't really do a lot. When you go Drame was a much, I don't think Drame had a great game, but he was a much more consistent and better, threat out on that right-hand side than Akintola was, and he's a fullback, so it wasn't great from Akintola, but...
We'll talk Preston in a second, but like you were saying just before we went to air, that hopefully like Liam Miller on the bench against Watford means that we might hopefully see some minutes for him against Preston. But before we do, your votes for this one?
Yeah, look, 3 points was easy. And that went to Ollie McBurnie, team of the week 2 for the second week in a row. The goal hits the post. Just got a lot of work.
He must be top goal scorer, close to top goal scorer in the division. I'll have a look while you...
I think that's 4 in the league, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so he must be pretty close.
He's up there. But yeah, it's great start. I think, another good finish. Unlucky to not have 2. And so I think he really is the talisman at the moment, the one that we've been wanting and looking for. This is probably the one that's a little bit controversial. 2 points, despite conceding a couple of goals. I'm giving 2 points to Panda.
Okay.
I actually thought that, I know some of it was not the greatest ever goalkeeping, but I thought there were a couple of saves, a couple of chances that Watford created in the first half where he did scramble really well. He was able to get a body in front and stop something like from really close range. So I actually thought he went okay, and I think it was kind of mentioned in the call as well, and I think Sergei Djukovic had mentioned it after the previous games. Well, it was after the Southampton game where we conceded late, and he said, like, we've got a goalkeeper who's not really necessarily in form, and his defense isn't doing him, any help with with some of the, chances that they're conceding and giving away. So I actually didn't think he was terrible. I thought, for the amount of chances that Watford actually did create, I know their strikers in the first half especially were woeful, but I thought he went okay. And then the other controversial one is I gave a point to Hughes, who again I didn't think was necessarily great, but I think the goal line clearance was kind of what earned him a point for me. But yeah, that's my 3-2-1.
Yeah, so I went McBurnie as well for the 3 votes. I actually went Amir for the 2 votes. I thought, whilst we conceded with him on the pitch, I did think that we lost a bit of control. And to your point when we first started talking about this game in terms of giving Watford a lot of the ball and control of the game, I feel like when Amir's on the pitch, we maybe don't have the bulk of possession, but we feel very, comfortable or controlled on the ball, composed on the ball. And I think we lost a bit of that when he went off. No coincidence then that they also then scored their winner with him off the pitch. And then I went Drame for the 1 vote. I thought, like you sort of said, I mean, the fact that he stepped in a more attacking role, opportunity, was that sort of outshining more naturally attacking players in the squad, got the assist for McBurnie. It's promising if we're going to start seeing good attacking returns from both sides, not just Giles, that, basically both fullbacks or wingbacks are being told just feed the ball to McBurnie, he'll put them away. I think he said in an interview last week that he's just said to Giles, just keep putting the balls in. I might only, get on the end of 2 or 3 of them, but if I'm getting on the end of 2 or 3 of them, I'm going to be scoring a couple of goals, So it's good that the defense and the attack are sort of linking up like that and have that confidence.
Yeah, I think the funniest part was that he said he was going to get Giles an England call up.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a few years ago when he was playing for Middlesbrough. I think people were talking about him for an England call up, and if he can get back into that sort of form. I did actually see, it was interesting. People were saying Giles's form at Middlesbrough, where he was feeding Akpom, was awesome, and the fact that McBurnie is definitely a better striker than Akpom sort of suggests that Giles could end up having an even better season this year. So, that'd be certainly interesting. Yeah. For sure. Yes, he's on 4 goals. He's 1 behind the Golden Boot, which is, I think, Sargent, Thorpe, and 1 other player on 5. Philogene also on 4 from his, hat-trick and goal on the weekend. So a couple of familiar names up there. But we'll talk Preston now, Preston and Sheffield United. To be honest, we can talk about both of them together. So Preston tomorrow morning, assuming it's 5 a.m. our time, which, as much as it's annoying that clocks are going forward for the weekend games, it'll be nicer for the midweek games. If you'd said we're playing Preston and Sheffield United and one's in 6th and one's in 24th, I don't think this is the, order of the teams you'd predict. But yeah, Preston sitting in 6th place, 2 wins and a couple of draws from their last 5 games as well. So, really looking a bit of a surprise packet after the way they finished last season, looking quite, quite out of form and quite in danger of going at the other end of the division. But we did beat them last time we played. Gelhardt with those 2 penalties to give us a 2-1 win that really sort of helped us stay up last season. And we've also sort of already talked about the fact, so, Ajayi back in the squad for this one. Miller on the bench against Watford, potentially getting some minutes in this one. But potentially hard to see changes to the starting 11. It could well be that we just roll out the same 11. I can't think of any obvious changes unless Ndala's fully fit and maybe you go, or, if you go, Destan in for Joseph or something like that. There's nothing that really jumps out at me.
Yeah, I can't really, I think the 11, I think Drame did enough coming in on that side to warrant giving him another start there, unless there's one of the other wingers who's back available, but I wouldn't start Akintola over him. I couldn't. And you go, well, if Ndala's, even if it was a minor thing, if he's been out, do you really want to start him? I think he's probably, we've talked about, I think he's probably been better off the bench anyway. I'd probably keep the same 11. Maybe Semi comes in, but that's about the only thing I could see.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of it's an interesting.
Actually, there's a question. Sorry, just I was just thinking with Panda whether because I know they had that big head knock in the game against Watford, whether there's a risk of concussion stuff that comes out after that game.
Yeah, good point. I haven't heard anything on that one, so that would be interesting.
I just think just because there was someone else.
So Hughes,
yeah, and I think there was a thing in the game, but then he went off and came back on, and it was all fine. And then they were oh no, concussion protocols, he can't play. And you're oh okay, so I guess there's a question mark there, maybe over Panda.
It feels like communication around that is really poor in England. I feel like it's just not talked about at all, and you just see the starting 11. It's like, oh yeah, he's missing because he's got a concussion. You're like, oh, okay. I feel like over here, it's like you hear about it straight after the game. You know that they've got concussion. You know they're going to be out for the game. You go, oh yeah, it's expected. But yeah, it's a good call. We'll see what happens with Panda. I was saying before in the chat, like it feels as if the way that we're playing at the moment, I'd almost back us more in for a win against Preston and then a loss against Sheffield United. But how do you feel going into the Preston game? What's your score prediction for this one?
Well, if we're going with the prediction that I've put down on Mitch's Facebook post, I've gone for a 1-1. We haven't been able to keep a clean sheet, so I'm not backing a clean sheet there. But I just feel like we just I guess against Watford, it just seemed felt a bit disconnected. Like I know we had a couple of really good chances, but we just the attack didn't seem to quite be linking up as well as it seemed to the couple of sort of the weeks before. So I'm feeling a little less confident, and against, as you say, like I mean Preston, which is 2 wins and a couple of draws in the last 5, that's reasonable form. So, and they're sitting in 6th. Yeah. So, I think this will be a tough game. I guess probably a draw. I'd be happy with it. I think I know Sheffield United is going to be tough because they're sort of trying to bounce back with Wilder back at the helm. But I think if we got 4 points out of these 2, I think I'd be pretty happy. I don't know. Yeah. As you say, it'll probably be that we somehow manage to sneak a win over Preston and then either throw it away or something against Sheffield United.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. I think 4 points from these 2 would definitely be a pass for me. Would be pretty happy with that. Yeah, I think probably most likely like a 1-1 in this, but I feel like we're reasonably unpredictable at the moment in terms of trying to predict results. Sheffield United, it's a really interesting one because it just feels, and we say this all the time, but it does feel like that sort of typical City, we'll go and we'll lose to them. I mean, it's probably a good thing that Wilder's back in charge and not Sayers. I feel like if it was Sayers in charge, we'd be nailed on to lose to him. Would have been giving him his first win or something if he was still in charge. Ironically, only 1 win in our last 5 games against them, and that was a 3-0 win at their place under Sayers last season. So, a bit of massive mixed history between the 2 squads as well, of course, because we've got McBurnie, Lundstrom, Egan, and Slater as well, all former Blades players. So there's either you could say there's no love lost or they'll be very happy to see each other. But I think from McBurnie's interview the other week, it sounds as if Wilder's just going to give him nothing before the game. So, and if we beat them, I think he'll get nothing after the game as well. So it's not going to be any sort of mixed emotions in that sense for McBurnie. So I think it'll be interesting. It'd be awesome if McBurnie can get a goal against them. I think that's, even if we lose, I think if he gets a goal against them, I'd still enjoy that one.
Yeah, look, I think it'll be a nice end to this little portion of the season, but I think we probably do need at least another win just to just sort of pick ourselves up again before the next little break.
But you sort of look at the table, yes, we're kind of okay at the moment, but you kind of want to keep those points ticking over, or else you start to get dragged into it a bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You can't go too many games without getting a win, because, as you say, you just start slipping away, and then it becomes harder and harder. And I think the thing is, while I guess maybe top 6 is and as a bit of a delusional dream or whatever, it's in the periphery. It's sort of attainable at the moment. If we can get a bit of form and get a few wins on the bounce, but I think if we did get into a position where that became unattainable, then I think we would probably see some of the fans, probably not at the games, but definitely online, turn against the manager and the squad again. We'd hear all of the hatred, the vitriol for Coyle and everyone else, Slater, who's all not good enough for this level and whatever. And so I guess that's, and potentially also from behind the scenes, we've seen Jun be pretty ruthless in some calls, and I know we're under a transfer embargo, but I'm sure he would have splashed the cash, could he have? But I think, like, he's brought in a manager who's got a good record. He's demanding excellence. He's done just about as good as you could do with it, with only bringing in free signings. Like, I mean, he even convinced Leeds to let JB come to us for nothing. So I don't know how he's wrangled that. But that's a kid on a contract with a reasonable future that they've basically let him come to us for nothing. So there's been some interesting wheelings and dealings done. Maybe he's given away free trips to Turkey to the Leeds board.
I mean, it's going to be interesting as well, because I almost look at it the other way and go, if we're in touching distance of the playoffs come January, what does Arjun pull out to kind of bolster the squad? Like, what sort of if he can get JB in the summer, like what could we do in January to bolster the opportunity? Because it is funny. Like we go up 1-0 against Watford, and I sort of half jokingly, looking at the live table, go, we're 2 points off second, and you go, it is still so condensed. But then you drop the points against Watford, and you think that can very quickly start to slip away, where you go, it's all of a sudden, maybe we take the lead against Preston, and you look at the table and say, oh, we're 2 points off sixth, and then we don't win that game, and then it's you're sort of slipping further and further behind the pack. So,
and then we're going, we're 2 point, we're just about top half if we win this one, and then suddenly going, we're out of the relegation if we win this one. I feel you.
Yeah, no, so it'll be interesting. Final comment on Sheffield United, though. It is going to be really interesting to see their mentality, because I know they went 1-0 up against Oxford, but then basically parked the bus because they were that terrified of conceding and not getting that first win. So I don't know if having that first win will make them easier to play against because they won't have as much pressure, or it'll be sort of that monkeys off the back and they'll actually be much more, open and trying to score a couple of goals against us. So look, I don't know. I think if we could get away from that one with, a 1-1, scrape a 2-1 or something like that, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, look, we go get to the break. I guess no more injuries, a few extra points in the bag. I think that'll be good. I think I'd probably like to see maybe or anyone else, but probably Gelhardt. I think he's sort of dropped off after those sort of early goals he got those few weeks ago. He's been a little bit peripheral probably the last couple of games, so I'd like to see him sort of have a big game or a couple of big games. I think he can be a really big player for us. I think he needs to be able to step up and contribute a little bit more than he has the last few weeks.
Yeah, no, good shout on that one. Hopefully Gelhardt can get amongst the goals in these games. But look, thank you for joining me for this one. We've got Preston and Sheffield United this week to look forward to. We'll probably take the week off next week, seeing how we go for recording schedules, and then be back to review these two games ahead of that next block of games. So yeah, thanks for jumping on down.
No worries.
Thanks everyone for listening in as well. Until next time. This guy's come on, City.